Before sunrise, Burn Dairy and Deli is preparing to fuel your day with hot coffee, donuts, muffins, breakfast sandwiches, and other morning staples. For lunch, grab a giant deli sandwich made the way you like it. Pizza, wings, wraps, or a fresh salad. Plus, something to wash it down. Then pick up dinner or a sweet treat and other pantry essentials. Now you can get your Burn Dairy and Deli favorites delivered with DoorDash. All day, every day, you can count on Burn Dairy and Deli. It's all good.
Hi, this is Cal Ripken Jr., and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
It's the ML Sports Platter all over the major platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, Stitcher, Deezer, Amazon Music, and more. Go ahead and download, subscribe, and leave 5-star reviews and feedback. All of that stuff is really appreciated. We are brought to you by Stanley Law Offices, our good friends over at Welch & Company Jewelers, Burn Dairy, and CNY Electrical. For any residential, commercial needs that you need electrical-wise, I tell you what, Sean and his team, they do an unbelievable job. CNYelectrical.com in the greater Central New York area and the great state of New York, CNYelectrical.com. Tip of the cap, thank you as well to Rosie's Corner and the Swan and Whitaker families. Well, I am delighted to bring onto the program somebody whose work is really awesome, just doing an unbelievable job as a high school sports and college sports enterprise reporter for the Buffalo News. Obviously close enough because of the city to the Bills, so we're going to really focus in on the St. Bonaventure Bonnies. One of the teams she covers, a team that won over Siena in the home opener. A lot of hype and expectations for this Bonaventure group, of course. And you can get her on Twitter at Rachel M. Lenzi. That's at Rachel M. Lenzi from the great city of Buffalo, New York. Rachel, how are you?
Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate taking the time.
So you were at the home opener against Siena at the Reilly Center. The crowd seemed like it was jumping through the roof. It was loud through the broadcast. Kind of take me through what you saw, in that game, some major takeaways, and just how good can this Bonaventure team be this year?
Well, first off, the Reilly Center was electric last night. It was a welcome sight to have back after 20 months when basketball, when sports, when the world wasn't normal. Last season we were watching games in empty arenas and covering them, and the artificial crowds buzz just didn't do it. But to have people back, to have the sense of community back, to watch banners being unfurled for the A-10 championships and for the NCAA tournament, to see the Franciscan Friars on the sidelines, to have the kids screaming in your ear behind press row. It was pretty electric, and you saw the Bonnies really start to feed off that. They started off slow against Siena, believe it or not. They were down by 10 at one point. It wasn't until late in the first half Bonna really found its groove. But they did that. The guard play came together. They went back to Mark Schmidt's philosophy of defense first. He always says offense is fickle, but defense will get you everywhere, which is kind of one of my favorite Mark Schmidt colloquialisms. It's true in basketball, though. And in the second half, they were fueled off transition. Their rebounding was much better. And they utilized and exercised their depth, particularly with newcomers like Kareem Koulibaly, who was filling in for Oshuni, who's going through some back issues, and Quadri Adams, who really played well defensively as well. You didn't see a lot of numbers for him on the stat sheet, but he was in there making a presence. And it kind of goes to my next point. Last season, Bonna, they had a great starting lineup. There was little to no depth behind them.
Yep.
And securing that depth this year with, again, guys like Quadri Adams and Kareem Koulibaly, who came in from ACC programs, Wake Forest and Pitt, respectively. Koulibaly brings another nice big presence in the paint, which Bonna really, really needed to help with Oshuni. And the fact that this veteran experience came in, and Linton Brown came in, a junior college transfer, filled in right away on the starting lineup. I think that's really what's going to push the Bonnies over the top this year, is having more off the bench that they can swap in and swap out and not get burned out in a long season.
You bring up Koulibaly, and I when they got some of these guys, I thought the same exact thing. I said, goodness, and by the way, no Jalen Attaway last night as well. You love Lofton, you love Welch. You know Welch very well from his Buffalo days. Jaron Holmes, Oshun speaks for himself. But yeah, I mean, there just needed to be a little bit more there. And I got to tell you, I think out of all those depth pieces, because of Oshun and what they need out of him and the demands at both ends of the floor and how he did put on some weight in the offseason, but he is kind of a skinny dude. I mean, he is kind of a brittle guy. Koulibaly coming right in there. I tell you what, that team, the offense did not miss a beat when he was in there, Rachel.
No, they did not. And he has a nice soft touch under the net, which is something that's very important at that forward center position in basketball. But he also brings some nice muscle. And I remember reading that he wasn't pleased with how he was being utilized at Pitt. Sometimes that happens with other schools. Why you see a lot of these transfers happen. And kind of the Atlantic 10 might be a little bit better, of a fit for him. Bonaventure first might be a little better of a fit for him. But like you said, I mean, Bona needed that. They needed some reinforcement at center because that long time wear and tear, especially on a guy like Oshuni who is blocking shots, he's rebounding. He's pretty good at outlet passes and passing the ball and creating plays from in deep. Again, that wears on a person, and I really think that's going to again help the Bonnies as far as going for the long term, sustaining that success.
There's no doubt about it. Mark Schmidt. I've had him on a bunch. Obviously, I'm a 2002 graduate of the school. Had some amazing times there. They were really good when I was there. They almost beat Kentucky in 2000 in the first game as a 12 seed. Went to the NIT a couple of times. They had really, really, really good players. A couple guys go to the NBA. But then right after that, they got in some trouble. And they let in Jamil Terrell with a welder certificate. They went on NCAA probation. They had to forfeit games. Players were transferring. I mean, Mike Gansey was Mr. Ohio basketball. He chose Bonnie. He ends up transferring out to West Virginia. And the school, it was a complete and utter mess. And for alums and fans of the school, there was a feeling amongst many of us, and I will admit it right now, Rachel, that I thought it was over. I thought that it was over at the level we knew it. Atlantic 10, the Reilly Center jumping, getting at least solid enough recruits, Bonaventure on a national stage here and there. I thought it was all gone. I thought they were going to go D2 or worse. Maybe the program would be canceled, maybe to the MAC. And now we fast forward to 2021. And Mark Schmidt, they've won multiple A10 titles, conference and tournament. They've been to the tournament NCAA 3 times. They're ranked nationally for the first time in 50 years. Can you make the argument that Mark Schmidt has done the best job in college basketball right now?
It's definitely in the top 5 as well. When he came in 2007, it was before my time, but I read up on it once I got here and tried to understand a little bit more of the program. I mean, anytime you have that kind of scandal rock a program, it can be devastating, but we've also seen that happen in other programs as well, too, where you think, this is it, this is done, where, you think, well, but Bonaventure, just from my findings and talking to other people, they wanted to right the ship after everything that had gone wrong. I mean, it was almost systemic what happened at Bonaventure. How many people enabled what happened to happen in the early 2000s as well? And, bringing in Mark Schmidt, looking back, I had looked up his record at Robert Morris. I mean, he didn't, wins and losses didn't blow anybody away, but there was something about he wanted to put a stamp on a program and do it the right way. And he had even said in his introductory press conference, I was reading the AP story when he was introduced in 2007, he said, we're going to do this the right way. And in turn, you saw St. Bonaventure really embrace that. And he also knew, and embracing it, not like, oh, yay, hugs, but almost in one of these, okay, we got to get on board knowing also, and this happens with a lot of athletic programs across the country, not just in basketball, the sport, basketball or football, whatever, if you're at Michigan or if you're at Penn State, that's the front door to the university as well. I think back to, and I'm going to get to a point here, so bear with me. I had never heard of St. Bonaventure until the mid-'90s when I was watching them on TV play for NCAA tournament berths, playing for Atlantic 10 championships. Same thing with Canisius. And there's so much recognition that goes with that, and there's so many dollars that go with that as well, too. So there's one of these, rather than downgrade a program, it was one of these, let's start repairing it instead and doing this the right way instead of doing it the cool way to keep up with the Joneses as well. And the right way takes a lot of time. We at Bona, they were starting to see the dividends of that in the early aughts, 11, 12, 13, and it was give patience to a coach like that when you want to make that investment as well.
Yeah, he said, that we were going to bring Bonaventure back brick by brick, and
yep.
And man, has he done it. Unbelievable. Rachel Lenzi, our guest here, covers high school sports and the college hoop scene for the Buffalo News. Terrific enterprise reporter at Rachel M. Lenzi on Twitter. Make sure you give her a follow and visit buffalonews.com for her work. You mentioned the key word, dollars. I mean, that's I think one of the differences with Bona and a Cuse that goes on probation, or in Arizona or whoever. Those are Power 5, Power 6 type schools, huge TV contracts. In a lot of cases, they have football, way more revenue, way more enrollment. There's just way more everything. And so I think that's another amazing thing about Schmidt is that, you think about the challenges and what they're up against. What I've really liked, though, is, again, being an alum of the school, is how Schmidt doesn't see anything as a challenge. He doesn't see that place as little Ole and in the middle of nowhere, all the crap you hear on all the broadcasts, right? He sees it as, now you're here and you can focus on basketball. It's a special place. Our alumni is a unique group. He has everything. He uses all of that to his advantage, and that's how he brings in, how he does it, I don't know. He brings in all these JUCO guys. He goes and gets an Andrew Nicholson in Canada. He uses it as a positive every step of the way, Rachel, and that's created a lot of that culture at Bonaventure.
Right. And another thing that's interesting, and this came out, media had recently spoken with Joe Manhertz, the new athletic director, as well, guy who has a background in fundraising, came from another school with a big basketball presence, where basketball is the front porch, the university in Duke, and he realizes also the success of Bonaventure basketball is going to open more doors financially as well, too. And there was a graphic going around on social media after Bona was ranked in the initial AP rankings that Bona has, I think, the lowest endowment of all the top 25 teams that are ranked. And I think it's the smallest enrollment as well, too. And that's one of those points where it's like you can capitalize, you can see the need, you can see where the return is as well, too. And it's not just about pride in the basketball program, it's pride in the school. You think about a lot of these big time donors. I kind of think of the Schottensteins at Ohio State, much larger scale. They've given so much money, and their name is on the building is on the basketball arena at Ohio State. But it's something like that where people recognize your dollars will help with the larger mission of the school and the athletic program as well. And that's one thing also that Joan Manhertz is very, very good at, is tying those two together and engaging the community. And I'm eager to see how he helps, kind of extend that at St. Bonaventure. And another thing I noticed, we were talking with Mark after the initial rankings were released. Mark Schmidt did thank the donors for helping set up with the success of Bonaventure basketball. So he recognizes that as well.
Yeah, he sure does. When you watch Kyle Lofton's game, what do you like the most?
I like that Kyle Lofton is fearless. He is a guy who is not afraid to shoot the ball. Even if he's in a cold snap, it doesn't discourage him. He had that happen last year. It was early on in a real weird season. Then he hit the game-winning three at Richmond, and that lifted his confidence up. Keeps going and going and going. It's almost like a golfer. You double bogey a hole, and you're like, wait, I've got 14 more holes to go. He keeps going. He also understands Bonaventure's bread and butter, again, is its defense. He wants to be a more well-rounded guard as well, too. And he's quick, and he's sharp, and he knows how to utilize all of his teammates.
Yeah, he is just... I think you're right. I think the fearless part is a huge deal. And last year, there were moments where he's so passionate and he's so aggressive on the floor, and he's so fearless where, like, as a Bonnie, fan, you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, man, don't go overboard because you'll get teed up pretty soon, and it can change the complexion of a game when you get a tee. But man, when it comes to the point guard position, I mean, I grew up in the old Big East in Syracuse. I'm a huge Sherman Douglas guy. I saw Adrian Autry. I saw Jerry McNamara go from shooting guard to point guard when they had the Billy Edelin crisis. Point guards galore. Johnny Flynn had one of the great personalities. You know that name from the Niagara Falls area.
Yeah.
I mean, the point guard, Allen Iverson at Georgetown. We can go on and on and on with point guards. It's one of those positions in sports, do you agree, Rachel, where that tenacity, fearless, all that sort of thing, yeah, there might be a tech here and there, but you don't want to change that guy's personality because that fits what the point guard does. General, commanding the court, both sides of the ball. You want that fearless, tenacious guy who really cares a lot.
Right, and the point guard is the quarterback of the offense, and it's in basketball. And you want someone who sees the floor completely, who can see plays before they happen, who can quickly evaluate defenses, but who also has that two-way game where he or she can bounce back really quickly on defense and get on their assignment as well. So I think that's really what's going to be important for Kyle this year is to, again, definitely refine, not just create, but refine that well-balanced role as well. And that's the other thing about a point guard. A point guard has to be loud. A point guard has to be demanding. They have to be assertive on the court as well. They are the leader. They run the offense as well.
So I got another one or two on Bana, and then we'll get to the Bills quickly to wrap up. But this team has Canisius this Sunday at the RC. Again, expecting it to be pretty much a walkover on that end. But you've got Boise. Then you get into some of the interesting games. You got some of these non-cons. Later in the year, you play Vatech. You play in Charlotte. I think that game is. They play UConn. They play Boise. The Charleston Classic's going to be unbelievable. Do you have, Rachel, in your mind a magic number this team maybe, and I know there's a lot of factors in college basketball. I know that the mid-majors get disrespected, so I get it. We both know what the story is. But is there a magic number somewhere along the line? Bana has to go, this versus this, win versus loss in the non-con in order to improve their seeding greatly to the point where they want to, they want the best matchup in March so that they can finally win one tournament game, which is what Bana fans are really dying for. Do you have a magic number non-con in mind to help get them to the best possible seed? I know they still have the A10, but the non-con part.
I haven't come up with a magic number yet, but in my preview story, I spoke with Joe Lenardi, the bracketologist from ESPN, and he told me, Jeff Goodman from Stadium.com told me this, and this is kind of along the lines of my philosophy as well. And I think back to the University of Buffalo's basketball team. Yes, I'm saying that to a Bonaventure grad. I understand. That UB, for lack of a better term, with their non-conference schedule, I would say they gamed the first system pretty well to get a higher seed. Like they beat West Virginia, and I think it was in overtime. They had won at Syracuse.
Yes.
They lost at Marquette,
yep.
But their Marquette's point guard time just went off. Every time I looked up, he was shooting. He was making a 3-pointer, and I could not remember the guy's game for the life of me right now. But they made the most out of that non-conference schedule, and that's what down the road helped their seeding, and that's what St. Bonaventure has to do as well too. You look at the Siena game. I think Siena was the point. They have to perform well down in Charleston next week. If you look at some of the teams in there, Clemson, Marquette, West Virginia's back there. These are teams that aren't necessarily in the net yet, or could be projected as the net. I haven't got a chance to look at Ken Palm yet to see where they're at. Got to put up some good showings as well. They have to play their home court well because Bonn is somewhere, I think, 25 or 26, in Ken Palm right now. That translates over to the net. The net rankings, for people who aren't listening, they're kind of one of the qualifiers that the tournament committee uses to seed the tournament down the road. I mean, they would be a quad one team right now, playing at home. On the road, it would be similar. So, and the net fluctuates throughout the season as well. I can't remember when the first net comes out. So they really have to exercise that as well. But the more wins that Bonnet can get on during their non-conference schedule, the better. I mean, and Joe Lenardi said they're going to be out athletics at some points during that non-conference schedule, and they also have to win some of these games against like Northwestern and Loyola. I think they're playing Loyola, Maryland. They have to win those convincingly as well, too. You can't be down 10 or 12 points, early in halftime, or before halftime as well, too. So it really is making the most of that non-conference schedule to help set up for the A10, to help set up for a high seeding down the road. I've seen them, I think, as a 6 in Lenardi's latest bracketology going to Pittsburgh. But again, that could all change. And it's a matter of being cognizant of how things unfold throughout the year with the net ranking, with how the committee perceives things, with how other teams around you do as well. Because you could have an opponent like, I don't know, St. Louis, who could go on a tear and their stock could rise. There's so much transitiveness, if that's lack of a better term, that can happen throughout the season. But I am more in general, make the most of that non-conference schedule. Don't roll over in the first 6-8 weeks of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. That game is Northeastern, the last non-con game, before the A10. And have you read Lenardi's book, by the way?
No, I need to read that.
Oh, you gotta. I had him on, and God, he was great. And I didn't know he had such a close relationship with Dennis DePero, who sadly died last year and was the president at Bona's, and it was amazing. I actually just got done reading his book a couple of weeks ago. For someone like you and what you do for a living, it's a must read. There's no doubt about that. Final one on Bonaventure. How would you describe to outsiders? I know before we did this interview on air, you and I were talking about what the RC is and how special, and you try to tell people, hey, you got to get to, if you cover college, you got to get here. Mm-hmm. It's a diamond in the rough. From the outside view, people who don't get Bona, who don't, it's just small school, whatever, who cares? It's just the A10, who cares? How would you describe it to those people, to the big boys, to people who don't pay attention to St. Bonnie basketball and the A10 and the crazy cult that we are as Bona alums and fans? How would you describe it to them?
I was saying this last night to someone else. I said, college basketball is the community during the school year in the St. Bonaventure. I mean, I was driving down 417 through Allegheny on my way to the RC. The bars and restaurants were packed with pregame. Kids were on the porches, playing beer pong, doing whatever, partying on the porches. Cars were lined up on in the street. Everybody was getting ready. They were pre-gaming, for lack of a better term, for St. Bonaventure basketball. And it was such a welcome sight to see that after last year. Again, we are still we're still dealing with COVID-19, but we have so many medical advances and societal advances that are helping us get through this as well, too. And once you get, start with the student section. Once you get that student section in there, in that small, high-ceiling gym, it just, the echo, the roar, it's a roar. It just reverberates everywhere. There's so much passion. They're so colorful. They're boisterous. They're graphic. They're just, someone described it to me as a mini Cameron Crazy. So it's all right, meaning it's a smaller student section in a smaller building. You get the old timers who've been going to Bona basketball for years, and you can see how passionate they are. You have the Franciscan friars on the sidelines wearing backwards baseball caps and digging into it as well. It really is a community event. One of the students told me last night, he said, for 2.5 hours every night, we get this in the winter. This is our escape from everything. And they fully embrace that basketball program. And, it's not just a front porch to the university. It is a rallying point. There's so much community pride as well. I go around the country, and somewhere I will meet a Bonaventure graduate, and the first thing we talk about is the basketball program as well, too. So I think that's really exciting, especially for a small college in Allegheny/Olean, New York, to have that recognition. And I'm sure the admissions people are loving that as well, too. It's like, hey, people are going to recognize us now.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's incredible, for how small we are. We're everywhere, and it's an amazing thing when people will say, well, it's not Duke, it's not Kentucky. But it's our Duke, it's our Kentucky. Right. That's how we treat it. Let's close on the Bills. God, what a horrible loss to Jacksonville. Have you jumped off? There are a lot of people who have, fans, media, whoever. Have you jumped off the Bills as a contender for a championship this year after that loss?
I have not, because I don't think there's time to panic yet. We're maybe at the halfway point of the season. I look, especially professional sports, as kind of an ebb and flow season. If that had happened against the Jaguars in December, I would say, yeah, now it's time to hit the panic button, especially as you make the playoffs, because you want to pick up steam. You want to peak at the right time. I know it's sports saying to say that, but I think there's also plenty of cause for concern with the Bills right now at the halfway point this season. My first observation watching them last week was the offensive line needs some work. I mean, Dawson Knox is absent, the tight end also. That impacts the offensive line, with multiple facets. When you have a guy like him who's super productive, he looked so out of sync last week as well. The penalties piled up as well, too. And they almost felt like, in other sports, it felt like they were playing down to Jacksonville's level a little bit. I saw that against Miami, which that's a concern. You don't want that kind of inconsistency to become consistent. And in a way, I look at it and say, better this is happening now, 8 or 9 games into the season, again, as opposed to as the playoffs are coming up, and they might be fighting for a playoff spot as they're stumbling a little bit as well. And I also wondered, I've wondered this the past 3 seasons, about where's the run game? I primarily cover college football with UB, and it's a game where I see more balance as opposed to an offense being very pass heavy, and it's almost like, where's the run game, guys? You have to have a more balanced offense, a more balanced program as well, if you want to be a contender. And I really think the Bills, they have to win this week to keep people from officially pressing the panic button.
Oh, there's no doubt that they have to win. I've lost some. I'm with you. I'm not in a full panic. But I've used the word concerned. I mean, I think there are a lot of things to be concerned about. They've got to get healthy on the O-line. They've got to get that line back. Allen with a clean pocket is not unlike any other quarterback. I mean, with a clean pocket, he's very, very good. And with a broken pocket, he can still make a ton of plays too. But he's getting into some of his old habits when he's under pressure. He's throwing the ball away to the other team. He's fumbling, things of that nature. But, there's one big thing, and I'll end on this, that people have to realize that is also mixed into this. On top of McDermott and his terrible game management against Jacksonville, the eggs that they've laid coming out of the bye week, the offensive line, no run game, all that crap. There's something that goes above all this. Two things. One is the hype and expectations are through the roof for this team, and when you have that, people gun for you, and that's the second part. They're gunning for you. You're getting the best game from every opponent. I don't care if James Robinson is out. I don't care if the Jaguars have a banged-up offensive line as well. They're still NFL players on that other side. They got there somehow. They're the best in the world just like everybody else. Their team might not be, but there's still a lot of ability on the other side no matter what. When everybody's gunning for you and you're not the new flavor anymore, and you have those hype and expectations, and that's obviously the cause of it, Rachel, this is the NFL. These type of things happen.
Right, absolutely. I mean, the Titans game, I think, should have been a harbinger. I felt as if people maybe underestimated the Titans. The Chiefs game was the big game, and I really believe that game, even though Derrick Henry isn't playing right now due to an injury, made the Titans into a legitimate AFC contender by beating the Bills, by showing.
By the way, I picked them to go to
with the dogs.
Yeah, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl this year in the preseason.
Wow, and it was, and I think we're seeing a little more parity, parity, in the AFC because of that. And people, teams are scouting the Bills a little tougher. I mean, look at the season opener against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that was another great example that where the Steelers exploited a special teams gaffe, and then when they got a chance, stepped on the Bills' throats. I think that was an early wake-up call that once it comes down to closer toward the end of the season, when the Bills can either put away the divisional title or angle for playoff spot, they're going to look back and be like, we took our lumps now, as opposed to in December. But I think also now is where you make these big repairs and make sure to say, hey, look, we got to fix this now, or we're going to be in big trouble in December.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, she does an unbelievable job. College and high school sports enterprise reporter for the Buffalo News, on Twitter, at Rachel M. Lenzi, BuffaloNews.com. Rachel, Lenzi, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for chatting some Bonnies and Bills. I'll save your contact info and would love to have you back.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I appreciate taking the time to talk to you.
Sensational conversation with Rachel Lenzi from the Buffalo News. Hit me on Twitter at Mike L Sports, and of course on Instagram and Facebook, the ML Sports Platter, for topics and more. And you can check out all of my ML Sports takes on the various social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, IGTV, TikTok, and YouTube. We are brought to you by Stanley Law Offices, Rosie's Corner, your State Farm agent, Matt Graham, and our great friends over at Elevate Fitness. Go get your membership today. If you're in and around Central New York, they got 2 great locations in DeWitt and Liverpool. They've got the hot tub and the pool, and they have classes, and they've got awesome weights and bikes, and they have a walking, they have a track to walk on. I'm really loving my membership there. I use just the swimming part and the hot tub part. That's why I jumped in to the fold there with them. But Gil and Jason and the gang, they just do an awesome job there. You can sign up for personal trainer sessions as well. Meet your goals in the gym. It's just a fantastic place to be. It's a family atmosphere. It's big. You can get your own locker. So make sure you go get your membership to Elevate Fitness of Syracuse, DeWitt, and Liverpool locations, and get them on social media as well. Tip of the cap, thank you to our friends over at the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group and Camillus Golf Club as well. This is the ML Sports Platter. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.